which is a public-private partnership, which was being pioneered in Kenya. I was a chief consultant among the assorted consultants who were hired under the Kenya Roads Board to be able to help both the private sector and the financial sector to understand how to roll out the PPP model in Kenya. And after that, Chair, I had a stint of 5 years serving as the CECM member in charge of finance in Nandi County, and of which I'm also able to highlight key notable achievements in due course. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Nominee, for that very, very brief introduction. I want to confirm whether the documents that you've supplied or you've handed over to the clerk, did you supply a copy of Director of Criminal Investigation Clearance?
Yes, Chair.
Higher Education Loans Board?
Yes.
The CRB?
Yes, Chair.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. While on that, have you ever, or rather, do you have any criminal record or a case pending before a court of law or a tribunal?
Thank you, Chair. I wish to confirm that I have no pending criminal or civil criminal case before any court of law, other than part of what necessitated this process, which was a petition, a civil petition, for which we are here today. Thank you.
In that particular case that you've mentioned, are you listed as a party?
Yes, we are listed as an interested party in the Senate.
Okay. You've said that you've submitted a clearance forms from Kenya Revenue Authority. Are you?
Yes, Chair, and I'm able to provide maybe a copy if it's not.
We can have copies because in the documents that you favor this committee with, none of them is there.
Well, I'll get that, Chair. Thank you.
All the clearance forms, please.
Allow me to get it just immediately. Thank you.
It is okay, yeah?
Okay.
What is the nature of your citizenship?
I am a Kenyan citizen, Chair.
Finally, will you be kind enough to inform this committee of your financial net worth?
Thank you, Chair. As listed in the form that was provided, I indicated that I am worth 50 million Kenya shillings, largely composed of real estate investments, Chair, a few companies, and motor vehicles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being that very, very brief. I'll now hand over you to the other members of the committee, starting with the Honorable Minority Leader, Honorable Kirongo.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. CPA Lagat, aware that you've been in this government for about 6 years. Now, since you took the oath of office, what have you done to showcase and that how do you think some of these trade shows that have been happening in this county help to grow the economy of the county?
Thank you so much, Chair. Indeed, I have in the past 6 years served as the CECM in charge of finance for 5 years, and the CECM in charge of trade, tourism, industrialization, and enterprise development for about 1 year. I'll quickly highlight the achievements under the previous docket and also move into the few achievements for the last 11 months I've been in office. First, when I came into office in October of 2017 as the CEC member in charge of finance and economic planning, the priority thing that was tasked with was to ensure that we put the financial management systems rolling in place and to ensure that all the sub-units within the Department of Finance, about 6 of them, are up and running. So the first thing I ensured was appropriate staffing with the requisite qualifications of all the dockets, right from procurement, revenue, M&D, economic planning. I ensured that properly the human resource is well placed, and ensured also that the accounting and the financial reporting unit is also properly constituted. When we came in, over the past 5 years, the reports that the county was receiving from the Auditor General was adverse or disclaimer. That is over the 5-year period of 2013 to 2017. But when I came in, from the year I came in to date, or for the 5 years I was the CECM in charge of finance, courtesy of the measures that I put in place, we're able to get qualified audit reports. And my colleague in the profession, CPA Birech, will tell you a qualified opinion is good, though not the best, but it's the second best. That is courtesy of the efforts that we put in place. So moving from disclaimer to a qualified audit report is testament of the proper processes and procedures that have been put in place. Two is there were certain units that were not operational. One was the M&D, that is the monitoring and evaluation system, which is a critical cog in monitoring the government operations. I set up the M&D unit and ensured that there were requisite personnel, and the reports emanating from that M&A unit were of great importance to all the departments in executing their work. We also set up, with my guidance, the statistics unit, which we were the third county after Makueni and Elgeyo Marakwet to set up a county statistics unit, which is a critical unit that informs data-driven planning, data-driven budgeting, and I'm happy to report that it is at its peak, having gathered all the statistics within the county, and there's an open portal available to all the members of the public to be able to check what the county has done, the effects and the impact of the programs, and possibly where we need intervention in terms of making it better. Chair, also, when I came in, the average revenue collection was 140 million shillings per year, and courtesy of our improvement in terms of systems, management, sealing the loopholes, we're able to increase our revenue to about 300 million. So it was an upward growth curve, save for the year of COVID, which dropped a little bit because of the number of waivers that we granted because of the pandemic. But overall, putting in place a revenue management system so the revenue doubled from what the county was getting initially. Third, Chair, or the fourth is, during that time also, we realized that a number of projects were stalled. And being the custodian of value for money concept in the county, I had to devise ways of ensuring that we complete projects. So I, with the help or with the guidance and the permission of His Excellency, set up a Rapid Results Initiative, an RRI initiative that saw the completion of so many stalled projects and operationalization of the ones that were also complete but not in usable condition. So an RRI initiative gave us success, and we were able to execute 26 projects that were stalled. Fifth, also, I was able, Chair, to set up a number of legislations which this House helped to approve. Notable among them, of course, is the approval of the second generation and the third generation CIDP, which I was involved in the preparation. I was also involved in the preparation of the Emergency Fund Bill, which was approved in this House. The Nandi County Youth Service Act, which was also approved in this House. The M&D policy, which I shared with this House. And of course, the various budget and other policy documents, the Finance Act, which this House helped to approve. Lastly, Chair, is when we also came in, the pending bills outstanding when we came in was 1.4 billion Kenya shillings. By the time I exited, we had cleared our pending bills, and the balance as at the close of that financial year was 177 million shillings, courtesy of our ability to prioritize. Lastly, I really was able to assist the various departments as a service department to be able to put financial and operational measures in place to ensure timely execution of their budgets through speedy procurement processes and devolving other functions that needed to be devolved from the finance center. Quickly, Chair, when I came to Trade about 11 months or so ago, the first thing that we did was really to make an assessment of where we are as a Trade department, and we found that there were a number of pending issues that needed to be sorted. Notable among them were policies and bills that needed to be approved. So we've been able to come up with a bill on our Nandi textile unit. We've also developed a bill on Nandi County Investment and Development Corporation, which will be a corporation that will be able to help the county invest and attract private investors into the county. Those bills will be coming to this house. We also carried out a successful trade fair, which we did in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce. And this trade fair really opened our eyes on how prepared the county government is in terms of attracting the investors. There are a number of things we found out in that I'll be able to expound later. We've also successfully set up market committees across the county. We've had to set up market committees afresh because we realize the importance of market committees in running as some sort of semi-autonomous government agencies, and the market committees being able to be an arm of government in executing certain programs that we may, as a government, not be able to discharge properly. I came in when the NATEX, the Nandi Textile Unit chair, was about 80% complete, and it had stalled. But courtesy of my engagement with the contractor and Rivertex, which was the entity that we were working jointly with, we resumed works. We are now 95% complete. We are currently developing a framework of getting trainers to be subjected through the process. We've already engaged the Department of Health to give us work as a trading unit. We want them to give us linen to be able to prepare for them. They don't need to go buy outside. Even the Department of Administration, we've agreed that they will give us a uniform for the enforcement. We'll be making them in-house. And a number of other things. Even should this house chair need any kind of clothing, we were ready as NATEX to execute the same, because we are ready for that. Lastly, among the few that I was to highlight, Chair, is that there is also the County Aggregation Industrial Park, which is an initiative under the bottom-up economic transformation model, spearheaded jointly by the Ministry of Trade and the county. We are among the first counties to have actually successfully launched, and I'm happy to report, Chair, that works are ongoing. The substructure works are almost complete, and we are on course to ensuring that with the help of the Treasury and this House, we should be the first county to complete that industrial park. And the promise from His Excellency the President was that the first 5 counties to complete will get special attention in terms of the investors that will come through. So we are on course to doing that. And I'm still grateful for the support of this committee, because a number of the documents that needed to be approved very fast were done by this House. And special appreciation and thanks also to the member of this committee, Mheshimiwa from Chamase, for helping me with the issues on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My second question concerns the legal licenses. And I'll ask the 2 questions so that you can answer all of them. Now, the county, through the Department of Health, is responsible for issuing legal licenses. Why is it that the county government this year revoked licenses that are issued without a refund of money to the licensees? My second question, there have been reported cases of corruption in the issuance of license or legal license while you are CECM. Did you encounter instances of corruption, and which options did you take? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and Honorable Member. One is indeed, yes, it is true that the liquor licensing process is in the Department of Trade, and to the best of my knowledge, we've been able to undertake a certain number of measures to ensure that the process of issuance of licenses is streamlined. This includes putting a system that is fed with information right from the sub-county level, and has all the data up to and including the report of either a successful applicant or a rejection. Now, the Nandi County Liquor and Alcoholic Drinks Act of 2014 gives us grounds for revocation of a license. In this case, if somebody has been given a liquor license, for example, but then is found is culpable of a crime like selling counterfeit drinks, the license of that person should be cancelled without recourse or without refund. The law is clear on that. Now, the process of cancellation is another tedious process, because to just come to your question is that we have not done any formal cancellation of a liquor license because the process involved in the cancellation has been a lengthy one. When you arrest a perpetrator with alleged counterfeit drinks, what you need to do is to involve all the other bodies, because these are multi-agency bodies. There's the anti-counterfeit, there is KRA, there is KEBS, and then there's the government chemist. Now, getting all those parties involved sometimes gets to a point whereby the drinks go bad. And one of the biggest hurdles we've had is getting the government chemist to give us report in good time for us to take action. So within the 11 months that I've been in office, whereas we've had a number of arrests, we've not cancelled or legally revoked a license on account of somebody having counterfeit, simply because they are all still under the process. Once we arrest somebody, the due process follows, and unfortunately, or by design, we are not in control of the process because the other bodies will give you reports. So to confirm is that we really haven't cancelled, but even if we were to cancel on grounds provided for in law, then we are not obliged to refund the money. Secondly is cases of corruption, Chair, is indeed those allegations have been there, but what I always ask is substantial or a legitimate evidence to the same, because when we set up the system, one of the key things we wanted the system to achieve was really to minimize on the corruption as far as possible. So when we onboarded the national bank system, what it does is that the sub-county committees are the ones entirely involved with the process of licensing together with the DCC, so they are the co-chairs of the committees. Their minutes are uploaded into the system, and the names and the names of the applicants put there. Those whose requests are rejected or accepted are also uploaded into the system. There is a second tier of secretaries reviewing the integrity of the information, subsequent to which we use that to generate licenses. And how the license is generated is the system will only allow you to print a license once you've paid. You can't get a license before you pay. So the system has really helped us. So anyone who has a license must have paid. But in the event that somebody is not happy, there is also the appeal process, the county review committee, which is headed by the county commissioner. They appeal to that county review committee, and this year that is what they did. Those who are not happy with the first level, they appeal to the county review committee, but the county review committee also rejected, subsequent to which about 108 of them went to court. So the matter was prosecuted before the court. So any process in the liquor process has been streamlined to the extent that an issue of corruption can easily be picked and dealt with accordingly because the law is that clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kirongo. Just a follow-up question on that. There is a lot of rampancy in, rather, the Kangara issue. And much of the time, this changa is a product from Kangara. And we've seen so many litigants that are acquitted in court whenever they're told that, or rather they're charged with the offense of being in possession of Kangara. What policy measures have you taken to remedy such acquittals in court?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'm aware of the Kangara issue. One of the biggest challenges we've had is, is in controlling the local brews, as it were, because there is no law that really governs that as such. Some counties have attempted to come up with a bill on enhanced changa, for example, or something that they are saying enhanced kienyeji drinks, which really has not received the light of day. What our law has given us is clearly something to do with counterfeit drinks, which you clearly have parameters. For example, if it is a counterfeit, you know the ethanol content should be this, the level of this, which can be adequately determined in a government chemist. And the law is there such that if it goes beyond, say, 40%, you're told this is bad for human consumption. But there has been no standard set for, say, what level of Chang'ai is bad and what level is good, or what level of Busa is okay for human consumption, what level has exceeded human consumption. So the traditional brews, we still have a big challenge in the sense that it's not been brought into a regulatory environment for us to be able to adequately control it. If we went out to prosecute the characters involved as a county government, we'll actually be doing so out of a social responsibility outside any law. And the police, most of the times, they've been able to execute that law. But if you find a competent person who can argue out, these cases may really not make it in court. But Chair, I know of some successful cases that Chang'ai, for example, when it's caused deaths of people or caused blindness, then it has been classified as a harmful product. But going forward, Chair, is one of the regulations. We are in the process of amending our Alcoholic Drink Control Act. We've had an engagement with the Committee on Trade in this House, and a number of those improvements in the law will actually come to the House so that we adequately have a measure to control the Kangara and the like drinks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Martin Douglas, you can engage the nominee.
Thank you. How are you, Mr. Waziri?
Fine, member.
Just shed some light about the status of completion of Mosoria Textile.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as I said, is that when I came in, the facility was about 80% complete. There were a number of works. One was the structure. Second was the perimeter fence. Then there were electrical works. There was the septic tank, cabro works, and then lastly the electricals. So 80% is that the structure was complete, basically the go down itself. There were a number of things left, like the fences. There was no electrical work done. The KPLC application for transformer had not been done. But the biggest challenge is that the project had stalled since 2021 January. When COVID came in, the project stalled. Stalling was largely because of also the disagreement, because how this project was done is that it was subcontracted to Rivertex East Africa to do the procurement process and supervision because they had the expertise. But the reason it stalled for about 2 or 3 years is because Rivertex East Africa fell out with the contractor on certain claims and certain issues that needed to be ironed out. So when I came in, it was stalled for about 2.5 years. I was able to bring the parties, both Rivertex and the contractor, on the table. We had extensive engagements. We had valuation of the works done. We had the contract. We went to the extent of terminating the engagement between the Rivertex and the contractor, and we took on the role as the primary procuring entity. We took on the role of supervising the contractor. With much convincing and back and forth engagement, the contractor accepted. He came to site and was able to complete his bit on the structure and the doors and the floor. What is left currently, Chair, is we've just paid. We managed to apply for a transformer. Kenya Power approved our application. We've paid for the transformer, and they've already mapped the route. They'll be bringing the transformer anytime. The contractor in charge of electrical works has completed the septic tank and a few other auxiliary works. He is embarking because he needed the power. He needs the power, but he's embarking on wiring as he awaits for Kenya Power to bring the transformer. While at it also, we are engaging some private players in the field to be able to help train our first cohort of workers who will be in that facility, because we look forward to having the first cohort of about, because the first number is 60. We'll need to hire about the first 100 to be able to work there. So what we've done is to be able to identify those with some level of skill, and that process has just started. And once we've identified those people with some skill, then they'll be trained and they'll be the first people to start producing whatever we will be able to produce from there. Rivertex, still we've engaged so that they are the ones to provide us with the first rolls of material within this month, and we've already had that agreement with them that as soon as we get the requisite demand from the Department of Health for the linen, the nurses' uniforms, and for the Department of Administration, the issues of the uniform, then Rivertex will give us the materials, and then we'll start the production. Thank you.
Yes, my second question is about Chepkit waterfalls. You know, it is one of the revenue generating source of the county. Can you be able to tell this committee how much did you manage to collect for this financial year? And what actually mechanism have you put in place to improve the said exercise?
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, Chepkit is a project under the Department of Tourism, and it's been a project that we've been able to invest quite an amount of money, though not enough to really bring it up to the state that we want it to be. Initially, Chepkit was run by a private person who used to collect about 88,000 per month. And the sharing formula was such that it was not favorable to the county. So the first decision we said is, as a county government, let's have Chepkit fully run by us. Though I'll still be able to explain why we will revert to the initial model. So from the the total figure that the county once collected when it was run by that person was 438,000. But when we resumed after a bit of the improvement of the works, we were able to collect 1.2 million shillings from Chepkit. Now, one of the items we've earmarked at the department is really to ensure that this Chepkit gets value for money, because it is strategically located at the intersection. It's at the threshold of Uasin Gishu and Nandi. The waterfall is something that can be harnessed to generate power. And also there is a lot of recreational activities, including accommodation and whatnot, that we'll be able to engage in. So whereas 1.2 million shillings is an improvement, for us, that is chicken food, and there's a lot of potential. So what part of the programs that we've put out under request for proposal for design, financing, operation, and transfer is actually Chepkit. So a number of people whom we've been able to meet are people who want to come and set a whole cottage, a whole recreation facility around Chepkit, including ziplining and all those activities. And they basically set it at their own cost, and we participate in revenue sharing up to a certain period of time, after which the lease will be looked at. So the real way that we'll derive value from Chepkit is if we go that direction of getting somebody to design, finance, operate, and transfer after a certain period of time, so that finally we can realize real value for it. Thank you.
Honorable Birech.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Nominee, Department of Trade and Industrialization is a key stakeholder when it comes to our own source revenue. Since you took over the Department of Trade and Industrialization, how do you rate Department of Trade and Industrialization in terms of collection of our own source revenue, since it's the leading stakeholder in terms of collection that contributes to our own source revenue? That's number one. Number two, thank you. You have explained that actually one of your key achievements is that you have come and put the books of accounts of our county government into an opinion that is qualified opinion, which is actually is a big achievement. But in your tenure, at least you will have to explain to us, we have two key audit opinions that emerged. One is an audit opinion on emergency fund, that is COVID. And on the report, it's actually a disclaimer. I think you are privy to, Bana CPA. It's actually a disclaimer. And on the report, it states there were unsupported withdrawals of 161,323,566. And it was actually, there was a breach of law under BFM Act, section 114, subsection 1, and Nandi County Emergency Fund Act 2020, which actually says CEC in charge of finance has to notify assembly when payments are made. When the payments of 161,363,566. In this case, it was not done. I believe you'll have to explain this, honorable committee. Number two, on the same report, there was unsupported general expenses of 62,795,286. You take us through that one, the one for the disclaimer, and then I'll come for the one for adverse. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Member. Yes, on the first question, is indeed true that the Department of Trade is key in ensuring that we enhance on-source revenue. Of course, I must state that all the departments have an equal share in generating the on-source revenue. And as it were, the leading department in generation of the on-source revenue is the Department of Health, followed by the Department of Lands, followed by the Department of Trade, then the Department of Lands. So the key revenue sources, Chair, under our department is the licenses, that is the single business permits. We also have revenues touching on the weights and measures, among other small sources of revenue. And if I was to rate, as per your question, is that I feel we are not doing what we should be able to do. I can say we are at, when it comes to single business permits, I can say we are at 70%, but when it comes to weights and measures, we are at, I can say 40%. The reason for this 40% on weights and measures is that there are certain critical equipment that are needed for our weights and measures department to be able to execute its mandate. And for a long time, we've not been able to have them. However, I need to indicate that in the previous 2 months, we've been able to get a supplier, one, to equip the weights and measures workshop, and secondly, to procure the weights and measures equipment, the scales, the test weights and all that then will be used. So I project that as soon as we have these weights and measures equipment, then we'll be able to do 100% calibration of all the weights, the weigh bridges, all the scales that are used by the business people, and all other measures that, be it the tea companies, the shopkeepers, the big weigh bridges, will be able to do fresh calibration. And as we do that, that translates to both help to the Mwananchi, and also we earn revenue as a county government. So that is the key focus that we're giving on our revenue. On the issue of the licenses, we hope to ramp up and ensure there is 100% compliance of single business permits. We've devised a way whereby the single business permit becomes a mandatory requirement in any government dealing. Even people seeking liquor license must first demonstrate that they have a single business permit and any other business. And through the Finance Act of 2023, we proposed some areas that needed expansion of the revenue base to ensure that then we rope in more taxes and ensure that we collect. We've also designated an office which we have, and we've called it a business licensing office, which will bring together all the parties. For example, in the past, what has been happening is if somebody needs a liquor license, they first have to go clear with the survey, then they go to the lands department, they get clearance, land rates, they go across town to sort the issues of single business, and then they come back now for the liquor license. But we've now decided that we are going to have all these people as a one-stop shop. Somebody will walk in there and they'll be sorted for all their issues. If it is about 5 regimes of licenses, they'll all be dealt within one house. Progressively, and this is what we've discussed with the governor, is that we will have a unified licensing system whereby you don't need to pay for 4 or 5 licenses. You just pay one amount, it covers all the licenses. So that is something that we're working on. Hopefully before the end of the financial year, we'll be able to issue one license, a unified license for all the activities. On to the issue of the emergency fund, Chair. Yes, indeed, it is true that in the year 2021, we had COVID, and one of the audit opinion that came out of it was a disclaimer. It was an advance in the 2022 financial year. I wish to explain as follows, and thank you for noting that the qualified opinion for the overall county is good enough. At the onset of COVID-19, certain declarations, because of the nature of the pandemic, nobody understood, and possibly we thought that it would get worse than it was. The Ministry of Health gave certain directions and guidelines via a letter dated 15th of June 2020 from the Ministry of Health to the Department of Health and the county government. And the key aspiration in the letter is that the Department of Health needed to purchase certain items towards equipping of the isolation units, as well as getting the protective personal equipment. That letter went ahead and appointed the chief officer in charge of health as the AIE holder. The normal procedure is, when it is issues to do with finances, is the ministry asks the CC in charge of finance to do the appointment of the AIE holder. So in this case, they said because of the gravity of the matter, these things must be done urgently. The Ministry of Health will be conveying certain information directly to the Department of Health without much regard to the Department of Finance. The second thing that the letter said was reduction of bureaucratic processes in the procurement of the protective equipment, and limited it to 15 days, so that upon receipt of money, you had 15 days to clear the money in the account. Now, this meant that upon receipt of the money, ordinarily, if it's a normal purchase, you would engage in a normal procurement process. But in this case, there was no room for a normal procurement process. The only thing that could happen, and it's allowed in a case of emergency, is to do direct procurement, relying on those guys who've supplied in the past, and those guys with capacity. So what the Department of Health proceeded to do was to quickly get those items through direct procurement. Subsequent to that, because lots of funds had been released, there were funds from KDSP, there were funds from our own budget, is that 3 audits were done. One audit was done by the Ministry of Health. That was value for money audit. What they were doing is, since they had given all the counties the work plans, they were checking whether you've complied with the work plan in purchasing those items. They found that there was value for money. National Treasury did also an independent audit to verify whether the funds had been used for the intended purposes as guided by the Ministry of Health. That was also given an okay. The World Bank, because they gave the Kenya Devolution Support Program, earmarked some funds for the same, came and did their audit of the 30 million that they'd given us, and they also gave an okay. Much later is when the Auditor General came for their normal audit, and in raising or in bringing the disclaimer report, disregarded the specificity of the nature of the situation that was at hand, disregarded the advice given by the Ministry of Health on the need to speedily execute purchases of certain items because of the nature of the emergency in the country, and without recourse to even the instruction given to the county, issued a disclaimer on the basis of a number of withdrawals that were not supported, which really was supported. The other disclaimer mentioned an aspect of Emergency Fund Act not having been approved in this House, which is also not factual because the Emergency Fund Act was approved on March 12th, 2020 in this House, and our right of response could not happen because already we were time barred by the time this report came, and had we had a dotted line or a clear reporting nexus between finance and the Ministry of Health, would have been able to guide some of those things. But the key thing that still led to then that disclaimer are still the three things. During this time, staff basically were working from home. There was only a skeleton staff that was working within the county, so most of the staff were working from home, save for the Ministry of, for the Department of Health staff. There was also a perceived emergency situation, and I want to believe that there was life saved as a result of the prompt action by the Department of Health. And of course, this not having a hands-on involvement by the finance department meant that perhaps certain things that could have been guided otherwise by finance were not done, hence leading to unclear or unsupported audit process, therefore giving us a disclaimer in that respect. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, an adverse opinion that is on still Nandi County Emergency Fund. And Waziri, I know you know the nature of this opinion.
Sorry to interrupt, Honorable Birech. The candidate before us is a nominee and is not a Waziri. Please,
Okay.
just for record purposes and for Hansard purposes.
Chair, I withdraw. Bwana CPA, I think when we talk of an adverse opinion, you know the weight of it. Of course, you have explained well on the disclaimer opinion, which can be understood. But now on the basis of an adverse opinion, where the books were presented and completely doesn't reflect the fair view of the county books. And you know, emergency fund, it has loss. You are supposed to operate within not less than 5% of the county budget. On that year, the county budget was 7.5 billion. And actually, you worked on 0.3%, which is less than what the law requires, that you're supposed to work on a figure not less than 5%. And on the same, the approved budget of 20 million was not received as a transfer from the county executive, and also not reflect the statement of comparison of budget and actual amounts of Nandi County Emergency Fund financial statements. What could be your view on this? Number two, the basis actually of the adverse opinion was operating on an approved fund. Yeah, operating on an approved fund. And finally, on misstatement of emergency expenditure that could not be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, to still pick up on the question of the Honorable Member on the last aspect of the question about the Act, the Emergency Act, the Emergency Fund Act requiring that I report to the County Assembly within 2 months of spending. One, I would want to say two things on the same. One is the issue of reporting within the 2 months was purely for purpose of replenishment. When I look at the budget and with the advisory from the executive is that we were not able to offer or provide additional funds because the act says if you draw 30 million, then write to the assembly for them to reallocate another 30 million. In essence, the emergency fund account should never come below a certain threshold, in this case, the 0.5%. So in this case, looking at the circumstances at that time and since all departments had really sacrificed their budget lines, there was unlikely to be a replenishment or a source of replenishment equivalent to the money that we sent. And this was a unique situation in the sense that COVID was a one-off disaster, as opposed to the normal emergencies. You'll see in the emergency fund there were certain interventions towards landslides and all that. This uniqueness in COVID meant that we were spending huge sums one-off, but we were not meant to maintain that threshold of about 160 million thereabouts continuously in the account. But after, I think, outside the period which I must own up, I was able to still write to the assembly, but that was outside the 2 months period. And therefore that perhaps became an anomaly. Of course, again, this aspect of how the whole operationalization of the emergency fund worked is such that most of the things were done way after the intervention, after the acts of interventions were put in place. The issue of the misstatement, as you say, through the chair, of the adverse opinion is one. You mentioned the issue of the fund not being approved in the House, which I've confirmed was really approved, and a copy of the same is available. During this audit process, the biggest disconnect was availing of information, because there's no way the fund would have operated without the approval of the county assembly. That is what the bank asks. In fact, the bank will always ask you, where is the approved act in place? So by the time we opened the Emergency Fund Act, we had to provide what had been approved by the assembly. There is still gray areas in the Emergency Fund Act, which by the time I was leaving office, we had actually set up some regulations, which I were part of my handover notes to my successor, on looking at some of these issues under regulations and possibly repealing the act to offer. For example, when you set a minimum threshold, we wanted, there's the wording of not less than and not more than. We wanted to give the county latitude to, based on any situation, allocate substantial funds without necessarily being tied to a certain percentage, because since this was the first year of operationalization, we learned some clauses may really not augur well, or may not give us some latitude to make the necessary decisions. So on the issue of the adverse and the disclaimer, substantially by the time I left office, we, though belatedly, provided the information to the Auditor General, but with audit, as you're aware, is if you provide information late, it is as good as it is not there. But really, there would have been a fairer report had the Auditor General admitted the late submission of documents, and also had the Auditor General looked at the advisory from the Ministry of Health, which asked that bureaucracies be kept at a minimum to ensure speedy execution and salvaging of the situation. And lastly, had the Auditor General looked at the other 3 reports, the Ministry of Health, Treasury, and the donor-funded report, which really gave a fair view. But suffice it to say, without really justifying, is that all the counties that were involved in this COVID, they all got advice or disclaimer. Not to give an excuse, but to say that there was a serious disconnect on how the whole aspect was mismanaged. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Sarah Mutual and Honorable Nominee, be mindful of the time you take to respond to the questions. Honorable Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. So, CPA Lagat. So, would you explain to this committee the economic viability of the Nandi County Industrial Park at Chemase? And again, what is the level of progress at AN? Then question 3 in that area again is, do we have any promising investors at this time? And another question is that, will it not benefit Kisumu County more than Nandi County now that it is allocated to that corner towards Kisumu? Okay. And how will it benefit the Mamambogas and the borders and our youth from the entire Nandi? Okay, you can carry that one, and then I'll come back to another question.
Thank you, Chair, and Honorable Member, thank you. The CAIP, the County Aggregation and Industrial Park, is an initiative of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, the BETA, spearheaded by the national government, and it is rolled out in all the 47 counties. Now, the first phase of this involves setting up of cold rooms, warehouses, and storage facilities, basically. And these are largely for industrial, agricultural products. The viability of this is something that I'll answer in the affirmative, in the sense that this, we're looking at a long-term viable project. One of the key missing links in the agriculture.
Honorable Martin Douglas, I'm calling your attention, please. Honorable Nominee, proceed. Come close here, Honorable Martin Douglas.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so my answer to the first question is yes, it is viable, both in the medium and the long run, in the sense that the missing link in terms of the agricultural value chain and getting value for our agricultural produce is storage. We told there are 40% losses in terms of post-harvest losses of our agricultural produce simply because of lack of proper storage and harvesting. So our very first initiative that we have at the CAIP is a storage facility which will be able to store produce from the farm. Cold rooms, for example, you can store potatoes for as long as 8 months, 12 months, or until such a time that the market is ready. So we will not have a situation where the farmers have to rush to sell to the market because they'll go bad. These facilities will be available at a very nominal cost for storage until when there is right prices in the market, hence bringing about the aspect of stability. There is also an aspect of, in this industrial park, an aspect of processing, which is a level of value addition. Remember, most of our agricultural produce are sold as raw materials. Now, with the setting up of the agricultural and industrial park, one of the key things that we look at is packaging, processing, packaging, and selling as a finished product, or even storing up to such a time that we will have the sufficient, or we'll have the market available. Therefore, the viability, first of all, brings us the aspect of sorting, storage, and post-harvest losses. If you give farmers storage, even for maize, proper drying, because there'll be dryers and there'll be proper storage facilities. If you're able to sort that for farmers, then the issue of maize shortages in certain parts of the year will actually be a thing of the past, because people will be ready to sell only when it is when it's ready. The progress is, as I said, is the substructure works are being done. All the hardcore has been filled, and the columning is beginning. And soon, then we'll be able to see. And the whole of the, currently we have 4 structures being done concurrently. All of them now are starting the columns. Once that is done, they'll be at the ring beam level. So we foresee that within the next 25 months, all the structures of this tender of 520 million will be ready for use. What we're doing, to touch on your third question on whether there are promising investors, is we're doing that concurrently. And one of the things is we are setting up the Nandi County Investment and Development Corporation, which is a prerequisite for us to engage with any partners that will come in. We'll be looking at the critical value chains as we indicated in our feasibility study. We have right from sugarcane, coffee, tea, indigenous vegetables, bananas, and all those sorts of things. So after we finish the setting up, which already the law is clear, the law is been approved by cabinet, it will come to this house. We'll now engage jointly with the ministry, and they've given us the leeway to engage with the Kenya Invest Kenya Investment Development, Kenya Invest Kenya Investment Authority, who are linking us to specific people with certain interest groups. And one of the things that we were asked as a county was to develop a very short concept note on how we want our industrial park to look like. That is something that we've done. We've been able to share with Kenya Invest, and they've organized a series of meetings, and we had agreed with the assembly chair on trade committee that the first meeting, which was to have been done, was postponed, and we hope that should I go through this nomination, we'll engage in the first meeting to see if that can work. Now, the industrial park covers about 100 acres. That will be about, depending on the size, the uptake, because how it will work is that after we've set up the first one, there are other companies globally that will want certain acreages within the 100 acres. Some will want 5 acres, others 10 acres. We'll be able to allocate them under a lease arrangement where we'll give them an investment certificate. For a foreign investor, they'll pay about 10 million for an investment certificate. That is revenue to the county. For a local investor, they'll pay 1 million for the investment certificate. As they set up, we've also captured that they have to adhere to the hiring of the local population. So it doesn't matter whether we are at the border of Kisumu and Nandi. The point is, it is a Nandi aggregation and industrial park. So the dominant population to be hired will be from Nandi. The advantage with being at the border, because really this is at the border, is one of the key requirements, and what most of the investors are asking is an industrial park should be at least not more than 20 kilometers from a major port, in this case an airport or a railway station. So there is the Kibigori railway station about 1.5 kilometers from our place, and the plans from national government is that the XGR will extend to that. That is a great advantage for us. There is also Kisumu International Airport, which is about 15 kilometers from there. So that offers a strategic position, because if we are to export fresh produce to the airport, it will only be 15 kilometers. So this is really a plus other than a disadvantage to us, because we are close to those premises. And therefore, this will be Nandi. Kisumu already, they are setting up theirs. It will actually encourage specialization, so that what Kisumu is doing, Nandi we don't do, and vice versa, so that we ensure that we have value for money. Again, it's a process that we are all learning, including the national government. As these things roll, we'll find better ways of refining the model until we can economically utilize it. So, of course, the investors that will come there will require staff to work, and the estimate is about 3,000 to 4,000 workforce, depending. So 3,000 to 4,000, if we were to divide amongst the wards, assuming we did the normal mathematics, so 3,000 divided by 30 wards, we are saying already we have 100 youth, first of all, working from there, before we talk of the technocrats, and those others will work up the value chain. So it's really a viable project, I submit. Thank you.
So, Mr. Lagat, I hope that you are aware that legislative is another arm of government that requires also respect. So let me take you back when you are the CC for finance. Okay. So, are you aware of the County Assembly report on the investigation into the loss of property, such as cement, tires, building materials, in the Department of Education and Transport in the year 2019?
It's through the chair, yes.
So, are you aware that you were cited in the said report, and you are fined 500,000, which you have not paid to date, nor have you made any arrangement to settle it?
Yes, I am aware of the fine through the chair.
Okay, for your knowledge, a decision of the county assembly only remains valid until or unless it is successfully challenged in a contempt rule of law. And in the light of that, why have you not challenged that decision, and what should this committee do about it?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, indeed, I am aware of that fine, which was mainly because I had missed an appearance in the investigation of the same. And when I received the letter, I consulted widely, including consulting the Speaker then, on the possibility of a waiver of this, considering that I was, so to say, a first-time offender to the House. And the Speaker asked that I put it in writing, asking for leniency through the clerk. So I wrote the letter through the clerk requesting that the House listens to me, and in light of the fact that the fine was high, and being a first-time offender, the House considers and waives it, since I'd already learned my lesson. So I wrote the letter. It was received by the Office of the Clerk on 4th of December, 2019. And I had been advised that written communication will come back also, whether confirming whether they are granting me the request or not. So the letter never came through. I'm still hopeful that it will come through so that this can be cleared. Thank you.
Okay, I think the chair will clear that one.
Now, CPA Alfred Lagat, you've said that you did a letter to the Honorable Clerk and you were to get a response to that?
Yes, Chair.
And to that, you confirm that you've not received any written communication from the Office of the Clerk over the same?
I haven't, Chair. To the best of my knowledge, it never came through.
Okay. Honorable Majority Leader, do you have any question for the nominee?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. And the CPA, I have 2 questions. Number one is, we have been having challenges across the county in terms of markets, especially the hygiene at the market, the lack of structures. What is your take on that if we approve your name in this assembly so that we can get the right hygiene in the markets across the county? And number 2, we have been having challenges also in terms of sale yards. A place like Jepterit, for example, doesn't have a land for a sale yard. And this has been a problem since. I think it has been a real challenge because the county is losing revenue because the land that we are using is not for the county. So what is your take on this to caution the problem? Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. One is, yes, indeed, over my last 11 months, I've noted with great concern the issue of the status of our markets, especially the hygiene and the infrastructure around it. So my first when I assumed office, Chair, the first thing that I looked at was whether there is any legislation to help me sort out the issue of the market. And I referred to the guidelines that were developed by the Ministry of Urban Planning, Chair, which required counties, or at least all the markets, to set up, number 1, working committees. And that is why in my earlier submissions I said we've been able to set up all committees in the markets. The other thing that the policy guideline gave, Chair, is that in the market collections, the committees under framework are allowed to retain up to 40% purely for the purposes of hygiene, infrastructural development, security, among other issues that are pertinent to the market. This is a matter, Chair, that I've been able to discuss with the Trade Department. I've also discussed it with His Excellency the Governor. And for us to win the war on hygiene and having markets which are operational, I'll be requesting, if considered, that this House really upholds that policy, whereby the center committees and the market committees, which we've actually set up, are gazetted to act like semi-autonomous government agencies. They are allowed a formula of retaining up to 40% of whatever is collected in that market. And that amount is applied in cleaning the market immediately after the market days. There's certain issues to do with toilet, there's certain issues to do with water, and issues to do with security, and issues to do with lighting. That money will help us to be able to have markets that are clean, markets that are secure, and markets that are able to attract traders. We had a case in point, Mosoriot. When we visited Mosoriot, the situation really was pathetic, and we've been able to engage with the committees. I'm just waiting for the relevant legislative process for us to be able to actualize that. And I'll really be glad if this House Chair can help us in adhering or implementing to that, so that we get these market committees accountable for the cleanliness of their markets, cleanliness of the disposal of the refuse. Secondly, on the issue of the sale yards, one, indeed, there is challenge of land. Case in point is Chepterit. Initially, when I was still in charge of finance, we had a budget of 30 million, which was meant for purchase of land within Chepterit. We encountered two hurdles. One was the land that we thought could be ideal for the market, which is private land. The owner was unwilling, or at some point when he was willing, the rates that he gave were really prohibitive in terms of they were very high. And when you looked at the government valuation, they were worlds apart. What the government value gave vis-a-vis what the owner of the land was asking was really ridiculous. So we've had to coexist with the private developers, as it were, by way of revenue sharing. And I must say, this really is not entirely a bad idea, as it were, because we may never be able to buy land across all the markets as a government. And what we can only do is to have a better regulative mechanism, whereby then they give the private developer remains with the land. Yes, we develop, but we share revenue in such a way that the revenue that accrues to the county is higher than what goes to the private developer, as opposed to the current situation, which is the exact opposite of that. That encourages partnership with the private sector, and going forward also, it helps us to speed up. Opening up of new markets. I must say that, Chair, for us to open new market, it has to be demand-driven other than supply-driven, because when you look across the county, there are certain structures or projects that the county has done, markets, for example, or juakali sheds or stalls, that are not in use because initially the aspirations of the people was not to do that, and it takes a lot of effort to enforce or to get people to use those facilities. But in an event where we've been able to cite or see people gravitating towards a certain location because of its strategic importance, then we should be able then to say, well, what do we do? For example, Chepterit is really key. And when we engaged in a private a small model of private-public partnership by opening up a livestock sale yard in Mosoriot, we thought that we would decongest Mosoriot to get the animals to go to Mosoriot, but the thing has since become defunct. Nobody takes the animals there, and the people have good reasons why they think Chepterit is a strategic place. So instead of really fighting it, we find a better collaboration of the owners of the land so that we work together. And going forward, we really are not going to insist on government having land. If there's a private sector with land, there should be a clear policy on how we on board and we work together with them. Thank you.
There is also a market in Kurkung, I think Kurkung Surungai, called Amani Market, which was commissioned by His Excellency the Governor. Up to now, the market has not worked, and we don't know the challenges which is happening, because already the funds was allocated and it has been in budget for some time. Are you aware of that market called Amani Market in bordering Western and Nandi? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm aware of Amani Market, which the sale yard was, I think, ideally opened initially, but I'm meant to understand there are some work that are left. Yes, that together with a number of the markets are really due for opening. in our current financial year, we have a list of projects that require small amounts here and there to sort sanitation issues here and there. But we also have markets which are already ready. And the Kurgung Surungai, the Amani market, for example, I engaged with the area member of the county assembly and said, really, time has come for us not to insist on governor opening the projects. With the setting up of the market committees and them working, and as soon as the relevant department has cleared that project, I will request even the members to open those projects for the public. Let us not wait for either the governor to open the project. For example, the market stalls that we have, and these are the markets, I will be happy if the members in this house tell me the market in my place is ready. You just work on the logistics with them, the ward administrator, and you open the markets and the facility is used, as opposed to seeing a situation whereby projects have been completed, but they are not in use. So the issue of a money market is something that I will still pick up with there are a certain number of issues we discussed with the area MCA, and we'll still be able to look at those. Thank you.
Finally, on the issue of boda operators, we have been having challenges, especially on some major centers. One is Sere Market, which has a potential of giving a lot of revenue to the county. But the challenges is the boda sheds, which has not been given to those centers. What is your opinion on how we'll address that issue going forward? Thank you.
Sorry if I got you through the chair. Is the areas that do not have boda sheds. Okay. Thank you, Chair. I think what we've noted over time is we really can never have enough boda sheds. And at some point, we had succeeded in sorting the issues of the boda partly when we agreed that the money that we collect from the stickers is put into their circles, their various groups, and they use that to sort the infrastructures. We didn't succeed because the leadership and the organization around it did not work of the bodas. But I have since picked it up with the leadership of the boda just before we left office a month ago. I had actually planned a meeting with the boda leaders. One of the key things we want to do is we reactivate the circles. These bodas must be in organized groups. What then they will do is a certain percentage which shall be approved and brought to this house will be retained at the circles. One is a savings, the other one is purely for the development of the infrastructure. So one of the things to properly and finally sort this issue is once they are in circles, these people will be allowed the leeway to develop certain design, to develop certain sheds which have been designed by the county and limited to a certain budget, so that it's no longer the work of the department to construct boda sheds, but to regulate the business and to offer a better conducive environment. But they can themselves be allocated land and they can develop those sheds using the percentage of what they collect, so that then they can have conducive working environments. Thank you.
And finally, Chairman, on a follow-up question on the textile at Mosoriot, we are aware, because I was sitting in committee for trade last time, and we are aware that we are having the equipments to be used in textile. Can you confirm to this committee whether those the sewing machines which are in Rivertex still safe up to the moment, because it has been so long?
Thank you, Chair. I want to confirm that we've since brought the machines to our facility. They are no longer in Rivertex. We've done an inventory. They are all in good condition. They are all still wrapped up. And at the point of testing and commissioning is when we will absolve Rivertex of any liability whatsoever. But up to that point, the physical integrity of the machines is intact as it were, and we have them in our custody. We brought them about 2 months ago. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Chairman, around the textile area, we have a challenge on road network, especially going to textile in Mosoriot. We are having a challenge on road network, even the issue of the drainage. What is your take on addressing that issue?
Thank you, Chair. We really have a problem both on the road, the water, lighting, and security. It's a myriad of problems. And as soon as this facility is operational, some problems are self-sorting in a way, because with the installation of the transformer, lighting will help and sort the issues of security. But I've been in discussion with the CC in charge of infrastructure. He will, in due time, allocate a machine for us to be able to sort the road network, after which we'll earmark some youth within the facility to be doing the manual maintenance of the roads, as well as those who will be in charge of security once we really start the full operations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Majority Leader, for your engagement with the nominee. To the nominee, our time is up, and just in less than a minute, you can make your final submissions before we...
Thank you, Chair. One is obviously to really be most grateful to this committee because of according me time and listening. This is an honor. Secondly, is to submit that going forward, should I be considered, we really have to do business unusual. We have to think outside the box and do things in an unconventional manner. Over the past 6 years, certain things have not yielded much fruit. So with the benefit of hindsight, some things will definitely be done differently. I will be able, with my experience even in finance, be able to advise on certain policies that emanate from other departments that will help us better operationalize, like the textile unit, the milk processing plant, among other investment opportunities as a county government. It's really time for the county to be involved in investment and generation of money. It is time we start recouping what we've put everywhere. If we put 100 million in a project, it's about time the county earns back that money, either through selling it to private sector and remaining with a small stake, or actually generating revenue that is profitable. And therefore, my focus, should I be considered by this honorable house, is to engage in ideas that are suitable and unique, that will really change things and not be business as usual. Thank you so much, Chair.
Wow, thank you so much, Honorable Nominee. I think we've now come to the closure of approval hearing in respect of CECM nominee for Department of Trade, Tourism, Industrialization and Enterprise Development. So we want to thank you for your time. We also want to thank you for your very, very precise responses to the questions from the members of the committee. To the members of the committee, may I take also this opportunity to appreciate the conciseness that we've been able to demonstrate, and also to the members of the Secretariat, and also to the members of the public who are in the Speakers Gallery for following these proceedings. So you now stand discharged. The committee will retire to make a report. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And just before you leave, you had endeavored to favor this committee with those clearances. Do you now have them? Well, thank you. You now stand discharged.